So it looks like Jay Prince should have just sat there and ate his food instead of getting involved with the Drake and Kendrick drama, because he is getting dragged for filth over all of it. He has been running the streets of Houston, Texas for a long time, but the moment he got involved in this drama, people who knew his secret activities have been dragging him for filth and exposing him for working as a handler for Hollywood elites. There are now reports that he has allegedly been uniliving rappers on orders of some very powerful people, and SchoolBoy Q is more than willing to spill the tea, and he brought some hard evidence to back his claims. Y'all need to get in on this drama real quick, because it's about to be a crazy hot mess, okay? So y'all remember how SchoolBoy Q pulled up to Houston this month, right? Well, it turns out that he was there from more than just a performance, because he made a crazy power move right in Jay Prince Jr.'s face. He dragged the whole checking in thing that Jay Prince demands from rappers visiting Houston, dragging it as the outdated joke it is. And let's be real, he's kind of got a point now. For some reason, Jay Prince is still out here playing these street games, trying to extort cash from his own people, but according to SchoolBoy Q, it allegedly goes beyond just extortion, because word in the streets is that this little scheme might have even cost some lives. But let's rewind for a minute. Y'all might think that the origins of this extortion game just started with rap and hip-hop, but it goes way deeper than that. We can trace it all the way back to the 18th century Italy, where the mafia were the og of the pay-up or face the consequences hustle. And when they made their way to the US cities like Chicago, New York, and Philly were caught in their grip, trembling at their demands. Of course, American street gangs and organized crime rings picked up on the playbook. And before long, extortion became a dark thread woven into hip-hop culture, with rap money flowing in. These groups wanted their piece of the pie, and extortion is practically ingrained in hip-hop's fabric today, and even the biggest stars couldn't dodge it. Take Two, for example, in 2011. Some mind-blowing FBI files dropped revealing that the Jewish Defense League had been shaking down Tupac, and other rap legends like the Feds claimed that J. Dale was making death threats against these artists, only to turn around and offer them protection for a fee. Of course, it was like a twisted insurance scheme with a side of life-threatening drama, and he was on their radar too right before he tragically passed away from AIDS. The FBI even hinted that these threats might have been made towards Tupac before his murder in Vegas. While street gangs are still up to their old tricks, insisting that rappers check in whenever they visit their city. The idea is to guarantee these artists can move around without getting mugged or worse. In return, the rappers either pay up for protection or let local artists open for them at their shows. It's like buying a pass to move safely. But sometimes the cost isn't just about money, it could be your life. But let's get into some of these high-profile cases caught into the situation. Remember when Kanye West had that unsettling encounter in Philly? He was just grabbing a meal with friends at a diner when a group of shady guys showed up. But they didn't even order, they just sat there watching them without even trying to hide the fact that they were targeting him. Kanan knew what was up, and he had to hide his jewelry and keep a low profile as the tension rose. That's when Beanie Siegel, aka the Broad Street Bully, stepped in and has the boys to stand down, making it clear that Kane was under his protection, and no one was going to mess with Kanye on his watch.
And he started to get kind of nervous, and he called you up.
No, he didn't call me up personally.
Well, somehow it got you.
You know, two ways you could put out the blast. It could go to everybody who was, you put the blast out that he felt threatened.
Right.
Yeah.
And you showed up.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, you let them know that nothing was going to happen to Kanye.
Nah.
That's not how it went down.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, nothing was going to happen to him. Not while I was there, nothing was going to happen to him.
And if you think that Philly's hardcore, just wait until you hear about Detroit. The Motor City plays by its own rules, and it's because of a guy named Trick Trick. When rappers come to Detroit, they better know about the no-fly zone. Trick Trick laid down the law. Show respect and pay your dues, or you're not performing in this city. On the Bring Champs podcast, he shared how back in the day record labels would come to Detroit making money off local artists while exploiting the city's talent. Well, Trick Trick wasn't about to let that slide. He made sure that only the locals were reaping the rewards of Detroit's music scene. And for those bold enough to ignore the Noli zone, they quickly found out that Trick was dead serious.
Let me ask you, Trick, because I don't understand what is the no-fly zone. What does that mean? Because I mean, I've come to Detroit and had marvelous times.
We shot movies together in Detroit.
So, but what is this no-fly zone mean?
It was for record labels.
Okay.
When record labels used to have like street teams, and that was back in the A&R days. You know, they would have a promo team, take the artists. You know, A&R take the artists to different locations, and it was like they were just coming to Detroit and wasn't picking up nothing. And it was like they would charge the local artists to perform. They would charge the local artists to perform, and the local artists would bring 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people sometimes to this event that will pay to get in. It's like, how is you charging them and they bringing you revenue?
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
And then, you know, when it kept happening with the little homies and they was just doing it because they got money, like, you know, fuck that, man.
Meaning paying to
Yeah,
be
it was just
on
so much.
their own stage, technically.
Exactly.
Right.
And it was radio as well. Like, you know, the Summer Jams events didn't consist of of mostly Detroit artists. They consist of everybody from everywhere else, and the Detroit artists would get charged.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck that. Stop everything.
Wow.
Now the only entertainment around this bitch gonna be what's here.
Right.
So we're gonna get acquainted with what we got around these corners, and then we'll start letting a few trinklets in one at a time. And if anybody violate it, we'll deal with that accordingly, you know.
And if you think this is limited to small artists alone, you better know you got some shocking news coming to you, because Rick Ross, who was then one of the biggest artists in the world and was in his prime, got a crash course on how real the NFLY zone can be. When Ross attempted to perform in Detroit without showing proper respect, he quickly discovered that Trick meant business. The show was called off, and Ross couldn't even enter the venue. It was a bold move and a clear message that in some cities, you either follow the rules or you don't get to play. When questioned about the incident, Ross downplayed, brushing it off as a typical day. His crew arrived at the venue first, only to find it locked up tight, and they knew the trouble was coming.
Yo, we went out to Detroit. You know, we had a gig to go to. You know, so the team head over, you know, to the gig, and you know, I got my team, so my team is always in front of me. You know, just to make it clear, I never even made it to the venue.
Okay.
I never made it to the venue. Me and whoever this gentleman is, we never crossed paths. He never spoke with Rose, and I expect him to clarify that. I expect him, you know, I expect him to tell y'all, we never talked to Rose, we never spoke to MG. But anyway, you know, the caravan on the way to the venue, and you know, they get there, and someone has locked the gates to the venue, padlocked or however they did it. The gate was locked. It was gentlemen supposed to be here. This I didn't see myself.
Okay.
It was supposed to be gentlemen here who were talking with the police, and it was very peaceful. You know, for my team that made it, you know,
There,
up there.
before you.
Right. You know, they didn't even know it was a problem, you know, and so.
Ross never came face to face with the so-called enforcers, thinking they'd eventually back down and admit they weren't up for the confrontation. Meanwhile, he relaxed at Greektown Casino, waiting for the promoter to sort out the mess. Instead of getting answers, Ross heard whispers about a gang making a show of their power. He let the rumors swirl, hoping someone would clarify the situation. When that didn't happen, Ross decided to take matters into his own hands. And here's where things get interesting, because Ross got his payout, likely a hefty one, but couldn't shake his frustration over his fans who were left waiting at a locked venue. For Ross, it wasn't a personal issue, it was business still. Something didn't sit right with him. And if you're trying to prove your strength, why shout the real players? Ross put it perfectly.